There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from never being able to stop. Not the tiredness of a long day's work, but something deeper, a weariness in your bones that no amount of sleep seems to touch. You want to rest, desperately, but when you finally sit down, when you finally have a moment with nothing demanding your attention, something inside you won't let you be still. The guilt creeps in almost immediately. Shouldn't you be doing something? Shouldn't you be productive, useful, making progress towards some goal? Even when your body is crying out for rest, your mind fills with thoughts of tasks undone, opportunities missed, time wasted. You pick up your phone without thinking. You open your laptop. You make a list. You do anything except simply be here, doing nothing, because doing nothing feels wrong. It feels like failure. And so you stay in motion, perpetually busy, endlessly tired, caught in a cycle you don't know how to escape because stopping feels more dangerous than continuing. When did rest become something you had to earn? When did simply existing, without purpose or productivity, become something to feel guilty about? We live in a culture that worships productivity. From the moment you wake up, you're measuring yourself against an invisible standard of output. How much did you accomplish today? Were you efficient? Did you optimize your time? Even rest has been turned into a productivity metric, self-care routines, sleep optimization, strategic recovery designed to make you perform better tomorrow. You've been taught that your worth is measured by what you produce, what you achieve, what you contribute. Being busy is a badge of honor. Being tired is proof you're working hard enough. And if you're not exhausted, if you're not hustling, if you're not constantly improving, then what are you? The culture whispers that you're lazy, unmotivated, falling behind in a race where everyone else is sprinting and you're barely keeping pace. So you run faster. You pack more into each day. You turn every moment into an opportunity for growth, learning, advancement. Even your hobbies become projects. Even your relationships become networking. And somewhere along the way, you forgot how to just be. You forgot that you are a human being, not a human doing. Your entire sense of self has become tied to your productivity, and now you're trapped in a system that demands more and more while giving less and less. Alan Watts saw through this game completely. He wasn't interested in teaching you how to be more productive or manage your time better or optimize your rest so you could work harder. He was interested in questioning the entire premise. Why are we living this way? Who decided that every moment must be filled, every action justified, every hour accounted for? Watts looked at the natural world and noticed something we've forgotten: nothing in nature hustles. Trees don't set goals for how many leaves to grow this season. Rivers don't stress about the most efficient path to the ocean. Birds don't feel guilty about singing for no productive reason. And yet everything in nature works perfectly. Everything unfolds according to its own rhythm, its own timing, its own intelligence. Watts taught that there's an art to doing nothing, and it's not laziness or giving up. It's actually a kind of profound wisdom, learning to be in harmony with the natural flow of life rather than constantly fighting against it. He called it wu-wei, which translates roughly as effortless action or non-doing. And it's not about becoming passive or checking out of life. It's about discovering that there's an intelligence that operates when you stop forcing, when you stop trying to control everything, when you finally allow yourself to simply be. Look at a tree. It doesn't try to grow. It just grows. There's no straining, no effort, no anxiety about whether it's growing fast enough or in the right direction. It responds to sun, water, soil, and seasons, doing what trees do without questioning whether it's doing it right. The growth happens naturally, effortlessly, as an expression of the tree's nature, not as an achievement to be proud of or a goal to be met. Your heart beats the same way. Right now, this moment, it's pumping blood through your body without any conscious instruction from you. You're not thinking, beat, beat, beat to keep it going. It just happens. Your lungs breathe. Your cells regenerate. Your hair grows. Wounds heal. Food digests. Your immune system fights off threats you never even know about. All of this is happening, constantly, without any effort from the part of you that thinks it's in charge. Your body is a perfect demonstration of Wu-Wei complex, intelligent action that requires no trying. And Watts would ask, what if your whole life could work this way? What if the constant effort, the endless trying, the exhausting push to make things happen, what if all of that is actually getting in the way of what would unfold naturally if you just stop interfering? In Taoist philosophy, Wu-Wei doesn't mean doing nothing in the sense of being lazy or checked out. It means acting from a place of alignment rather than force. It's the difference between swimming with a river's current and swimming against it. Both involve movement, but one is exhausting and the other is effortless. When you're in Wu-Wei, action arises naturally from the situation itself rather than from your anxious thinking about what you should do. You respond rather than force. You allow rather than control. You flow rather than push. It's like when you're having a great conversation and the words just come. You're not planning each sentence, not trying to be interesting or impressive. You're just there and the words flow through you. Or when you're completely absorbed in something you love and hours pass without you noticing because you're not trying to focus, you just are focused. That's Wu-Wei. That's what happens when you stop interfering with your own natural intelligence. The problem is, we've been trained to interfere constantly. We've learned to override our instincts, doubt our intuition, force ourselves into molds that don't fit. And then we wonder why everything feels so hard, why we're so tired, why life has become this endless struggle instead of the flowing dance it could be. Your body has been demonstrating this wisdom your entire life, but you've been too busy thinking to notice. Right now, you're breathing. You didn't decide to breathe, just now it happened on its own. Your heart is beating without your permission. Your eyes are adjusting to light without conscious instruction. Digestion is happening. Temperature is being regulated. Balance is being maintained, all without you having to think about any of it. This is the intelligence that Watts is pointing to, knowing that exists prior to thought, deeper than thinking, more reliable than the anxious planning mind. When you were a baby, you didn't read a book on how to walk. You didn't take a course on language acquisition. You just learned, naturally, through trial and error and instinct, through a kind of intelligence that needs no instruction manual. And that intelligence hasn't gone anywhere. It's still here, still operating, still knowing what you need before your thinking mind catches up. But you've learned to ignore it, to override it, to trust your thoughts more than your felt sense of things. And so you've cut yourself off from the very wisdom that could make your life feel effortless instead of exhausting. There's something you're running from when you can't sit still. Something you're afraid to meet when you fill every silence with noise, every gap with distraction, every empty moment with busyness. Most people, if they're honest, are terrified of silence. Not the literal absence of sound, but the inner quiet that comes when you stop doing, stop consuming, stop filling your attention with external things. In that silence, you might have to face yourself. You might have to feel the emotions you've been avoiding. You might have to sit with the discomfort of not knowing, not achieving, not progressing toward anything. The silence feels like emptiness, like a void that will swallow you if you let it. And so you keep moving, keep scrolling, keep doing anything to avoid that confrontation with the quiet center of your own being. But what if the silence isn't what you think it is? What if it's not empty at all? Silence is full. This might be the most important thing to understand. When you listen to music, where does the beauty come from? Not just from the notes, but from the spaces between them. The pause is what gives meaning to the sound. A song with no silence is just noise. Language works the same way. Words only make sense because of the gaps, the spaces between syllables, the pauses between sentences, the silence that allows one thought to end and another to begin. Without silence, there would be no communication, no music, no meaning. The silence isn't the absence of something, it's the presence of the space in which everything can exist. It's the canvas on which life paints itself. And you are not separate from this silence. You're not making noise in an otherwise quiet universe. You're arising from silence, expressing through sound and action and thought, and returning to silence, like a wave rising from the ocean and falling back into it. The wave isn't separate from the water, it's a temporary form the water is taking. And you're the same. You're not disturbing some cosmic silence with your existence. You're the silence temporarily taking the form of a person, experiencing itself, knowing itself, before dissolving back into the formlessness from which you came. Listen to the space between these words, not by thinking about it, but by actually feeling it. There's a quality to the silence that holds all sound, something you can sense but not quite grasp, present but not tangible. It's here right now, underneath every sound, behind every thought, prior to every experience. This silence has been with you your entire life. It was here before you learned language, before you developed a personality, before you became someone with a name and a story. And it will be here after all of that falls away. The silence is what you are beneath everything you think you are. It's closer than your breath, more intimate than your thoughts, more fundamental than your heartbeat. When everything else is stripped away, the roles you play, the identity you maintain, the constant stream of mental commentary, this silence remains. And it's not empty or lonely or frightening. It's the deepest peace you've ever known, have always known, will always know, waiting patiently for you to stop running and finally come home. So how do you do nothing? Here's the frustrating answer. You stop doing. That's it. Not stop doing and then do this special technique, or stop doing and replace it with this practice. Just stop. Stop trying to improve this moment. Stop trying to get somewhere other than here. Stop trying to become someone other than who you are right now. Just be. Just exist. Just let yourself sit or stand or lie here without agenda, without purpose, without trying to make something happen. And if that sounds too simple, notice that too simple is another thought trying to turn this into a project, trying to make it complicated so your mind can stay in control. The art of doing nothing is the art of finally letting things be exactly as they are, including your discomfort with how simple this is. There's nothing to master here, nothing to get right. You're not trying to achieve a state of perfect stillness or enlightened consciousness. You're just practicing the radical act of being alive without needing to justify it, prove it, or improve it. When you stop forcing, when you finally get out of your own way, something remarkable happens. Not immediately, maybe. Not dramatically. But gradually, quietly, a different kind of intelligence begins to emerge. You've probably experienced it already without naming it, those moments when the answer to a problem you've been struggling with suddenly appears. Not when you're working on it, but when you're in the shower or taking a walk or doing something completely unrelated. That's not random. That's what happens when the frantically thinking surface mind finally quiets and the deeper intelligence can surface. Creative people know this. Artists, writers, musicians, scientists, they all know that the best ideas don't come from trying harder. They come from a kind of relaxed attention, a state of not trying where something beyond the thinking mind can express itself. Einstein called it combinatory play. Mozart said, melodies came to him whole while he was walking. The answers were always there, waiting beneath the noise, but they could only be heard when the noise stopped. This is the intelligence of doing nothing, not the absence of intelligence, but the presence of a knowing that thinking blocks, a wisdom that effort obscures, a clarity that appears only when you stop searching for it. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you practice doing nothing, when you really let yourself stop, something else falls away to the sense of being someone. All day long, you maintain this identity. You're a person with a name, a history, a personality, a set of preferences and opinions and roles you play. And maintaining all of that is exhausting, even though you don't usually notice it. You have to be consistent, recognizable, the same person you were yesterday, so people know who you are. You have to maintain your character, defend your opinions, live up to your self-image. It's a constant performance, and you've been doing it for so long you forgot it's a performance. But when you do nothing, when you really stop, the character starts to dissolve. The person you think you are begins to fade. And what's left isn't emptiness at presence without story, awareness without identity, life living itself without a narrator commenting on everything. This is what you actually are underneath the role you've been playing. Not a person who has consciousness, but consciousness appearing as a person, playing at being someone, yet never actually bound by that role. And in that recognition, there's a lightness, a freedom, a sense of finally putting down a weight you didn't even know you were carrying. Something shifted while you were listening, didn't it? Maybe you can't name it exactly, but there's a quality to this moment that feels different from when you started. A spaciousness, maybe. A kind of relief. A sense that perhaps you don't have to keep pushing so hard, trying so much, forcing your way through everything. This isn't because you've learned something new or achieved some elevated state. It's because you've stopped doing something old stopped, the constant inner pressure, stopped the relentless self-judgment, stopped the exhausting effort of trying to be someone other than who you are. And in that stopping, you've touched something that was here all along. The peace isn't something you created. You didn't build it or earn it or think your way into it. You just finally stopped covering it up with all you're doing. The silence was always here. The stillness was always present. You were always this peace, underneath the noise, prior to the struggle, before you learned that you needed to be something more than you already are. You can bring this into your life without changing anything external. You don't have to quit your job or move to a monastery or drastically alter your daily routine. The art of doing nothing isn't about doing less, it's about being different while you do what you do. It's about finding the silence that moves with you, the stillness that's present even in activity. When you're working, you can work from a place of flow rather than from frantic effort. When you're with people, you can be present rather than planning your next words. When you're moving through your day, you can move from that deeper place rather than from the anxious thinking that usually drives you. It's subtle but transformative. Instead of acting from the voice in your head that's constantly worried and planning and judging, you act from the awareness beneath that voice, the quiet, knowing that's been here all along, watching everything, holding everything, never disturbed by anything that appears within it. This is woo-why in daily life. You're still doing things, still showing up, still engaging with the world. But now, the doing comes from being rather than from trying to become. The action arises from stillness rather than from struggle. And somehow, mysteriously, everything works better with less effort. The peace you've touched here doesn't depend on circumstances. It doesn't require you to maintain a perfect state of doing nothing or to live in constant silence. It doesn't even require you to remember everything you've heard here. Because peace isn't a state you create and then have to protect. It's what you are beneath every state. It's here when you're busy and when you're still. It's here when life is smooth and when it's difficult. It's here when you remember it and when you forget it. The peace isn't something fragile that you have to maintain. It's the ground you're standing on, the space you're moving through, the awareness you're made of. You can't lose it because you are it. You've just been so busy looking for it that you didn't notice you were already home. And now that you've recognized it once, you can recognize it again whenever you remember to stop trying and simply be. The art of doing nothing isn't something you master once and then you're done. It's a returning, again and again, to what's always been here. A remembering that you don't have to earn your existence, justify your being, or prove your worth through constant productivity. You are allowed to rest. Not because you've worked hard enough to deserve it, not because you've completed everything on your list, not because you've optimized your recovery for better performance tomorrow. You're allowed to rest simply because you're alive, and rest is part of being alive, as natural as breathing, as necessary as heartbeat. You're allowed to do nothing, to sit in silence, to exist without purpose or agenda or goal. To be here, in this moment, as you are, without needing to become anything else. This permission isn't something someone else can give you or take away. It's something you give yourself by finally seeing through the lie that you need to earn the right to exist peacefully. You were born with that right. You've always had it. And every time you remember it, every time you let yourself stop and rest in the silence that you are, you're coming home to a peace that asks nothing of you, requires nothing from you, just holds you the way the sky holds clouds, the way the ocean holds waves, allowing everything to arise, allowing everything to be, never demanding that anything be different from what it is,